Hello, welcome. So this year I've been randomly selecting eyeshadows. I did that in January and I did that in February. I'll have those both linked down below. And it's been really fun to kind of get to know some of my eyeshadows a little better. And today I just want to kind of go over all of those, maybe talk about some favorites, and talk about the products that I use that I want to declutter. If you want to see more looks, I filmed all of the lipsticks that I wore in January, and in that video you see all my different eye looks that I wore. I'm still working on the one for February, but that one will be upcoming, and that will showcase what I was able to do with these palettes. So to start, let's pop up a picture of my random palette from January. I felt like this palette kind of came together nicely. There was a lot of coordinating shades. There was like a couple clear color stories. I had some pinks, I had some cool tones, I had some purple. It felt pretty like evenly dispersed. I have to say my MVPs from here were Terra Moon's Phoenix and ColourPop Hungry Ghost. I used those both together for a look. It's actually what I'm wearing when I randomly selected my February palette, and I just love those shadows. I knew I loved them, but it really reinforced my love for them. I did have a couple shadows that kind of like fell into the same category, that if I were kind of reconstructing a similar palette to this on my own, I would have chose like maybe one or two of them. I think we had Luxie Hybrid, we had one of the Adept shadows, we had, I think that was Messier from Divina, and not Space Case. I'll put it here, a shadow from Terra Moon's, but that was even interesting to like see kind of minute differences between them that I might not have picked up on otherwise. Like I know now that Hybrid is more warm toned than those other ones. The Adept one is more sheer. The Divina one's a little bit more sheer also, and that Terra Moon's one is like really high impact. I also was really enjoying Titan from Terra Moon's. It's one of the multi-chromes, but I feel like it's just so wearable. It's not a black base multi-chrome. I think it's a gray base multi-chrome, but for me I just feel like it's like a colorful base or a neutral base, but it doesn't give me that like harsh line of demarcation that a black base multi-chrome gives me. I was also really enjoying Starling from Menagerie. It's that shimmery purple. I didn't even know what shadow that was going to be when I pulled the name of it, and it's cool to like kind of get to know my shadows even by name a little bit more. But I wore that on my lower lash line, I think in that look that I really liked with Phoenix and Hungry Ghost. And it was just really pretty on the lower lash line, and I was really enjoying it. So I pulled to the side a couple that I wanted to declutter. The first one is this light pink from Jeffree Star. It just wasn't delivering the punch and the sparkle that I really want from my eyeshadows nowadays. And I kind of suspected that might be the case. I believe this was depotted from the, is it the Royal Blood? I feel like that might not be the name of the palette, but it's the purple palette from Jeffree Star. And I just feel like the quality of shadows in that palette is bad. It's the most recent palette that I bought from him. I stopped purchasing from Jeffree Star after I bought that palette, but I still stand by the fact that like my depotted Blood Sugar shadows are for the most part really nice quality. And this purple palette was just not nice quality. And I feel like I hear that more often about the newer shadows. So this is that light pink. It's just like a very, very basic shimmer. There's also another light pink that I decided to declutter. It's Earthshine from ColourPop. This is one that I feel like when I compare it to my other ColourPop shadows, it is more interesting. It has a little bit more of that micro sparkle, but it's just not enough to like give me the oomph I want on my eyelids. Like I definitely like it more than the Jeffree Star one, but it's just not enough. And I had a look that I used this, and I ended up just going over it with Marshmallow Pillows from Divina because this was just not giving me the eye look that I need. Speaking of the Blood Sugar palette from Jeffree Star, this is a shade that when I depotted that palette, I was like really unsure about the quality for this, but I just wasn't ready to give it away yet. And I tried it out this month, and it just didn't pack the punch that I wanted. And I had ColourPop Meteorite in this palette, which I think is a little bit more of like a rusty red than this bright one is. But just comparing those two showed me that I don't need to be keeping this one. It just doesn't come up well at all. I think it's just kind of like past its prime. And then the final shade that I want to declutter from this palette is one that I was kind of going back and forth on, but I'm just not crazy by the shadow. It's Ethereal from Divina. It's like a super light gray, and I would kind of use it as a transition when I'm doing a look that's not warm, but I think it's the kind of thing that like I use it because I have it. I don't go into my crease with blues or greens that often anyway. And if I do, like I can just go in, or I can use like a more neutral transition. I don't need this cool one. I also find these mattes from Terra Moons to be very powdery, and they're just not my favorite to work with. So that's Ethereal from Divina. The next two things that I drew for January were two liquid shadows. The first one is this elf shadow. It doesn't have a name on it, but it's just this gold shadow. And I tried it out, and it just didn't do anything for me. It's nice. Don't get me wrong, it's very nice. But after I started thinking about this one more, after I tried it out, I just kind of went through my collection and swatched a bunch of golds on my hands, and I was blown away by the gold shadows that I have in my collection. I didn't even realize I had that many. I'll post my little video here. I put it on my Instagram already. I'm not sure what's where, but I know I have some Divina ones in there. I have some Luxie ones in there, and they're so much nicer than this one is. This one's marked with a little black eyeliner above it in the video, but that just proved to me that I don't need to be holding on to this. I also don't reach for liquid shadows that much. This one from Sydney Grace, I was on the fence about. It's the liquid shadow in My Bond. I thought for a minute I was going to be able to declutter it, but I did do a look where I used this as like a big graphic wing, and then I popped some Luxie Hybrid over it, and it's really pretty. Maybe it's something that I'll use more once I narrow down my collection of non-pan single shadows a little bit more. I'm not sure, but I'm not ready to get rid of it because it is really pretty. After that, I pulled out two palettes. The first one was the BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette. It was kind of nice to make myself use this because it's something that I just don't think about using, but I do treasure it. I do like having it. And I will say, I like the mattes a lot in it, and I just feel like I've kind of graduated from this quality of shimmer. Like, it's not bad. I don't mind some of the lighter ones like in my inner corner. And, you know, I wore them, but I just feel like I need to kind of step it up a little bit. I prefer to use a shimmer like this if I'm then going to maybe tap something super sparkly in the middle or something. Something that surprised me though was, I don't think I've mentioned this, but I've been kind of like making a little grid of the palettes and making sure that I use all of the shadows. So that's kind of my first objective after I pull a group, to just use all of them and then start kind of experimenting. And with this palette, I think I had like 5 left that I hadn't used yet when I had already used all of my other shadows, and they were all shimmers. So I went in with Boho in my crease. It's this kind of like rose gold one looking here. I thought it was just gonna be like a weird one-off look, but I loved how that looked as a transition. And I think that's just kind of showing how my makeup taste is evolving, that now that I love so like super sparkly lid shades, these like kind of sparkly lid shades work really well as like transition shades. So I ended up using that for a lot of different looks after as a transition. So that was fun, and that's something that I probably wouldn't have discovered had I not made myself use this and use all the shadows and use it a couple times. The other palette was this e.l.f. Mad for Matte palette. I think this one I've held on to so long just because it seems so practical. I know people always say like this would be good for travel, and it's like, how often do any of us regular people travel that we need to hold on things especially for travel? So I did use every shadow in this, and I just felt like it wasn't anything special. It didn't impress me. It seemed a little bit splotchy when I used it, and I decided that I'm ready to declutter this one. So that's what we're doing. So for the January palettes selection, we're decluttering 4 single shadows, 1 liquid shadow, and 1 eyeshadow palette. My February palette was a little bit more of a journey. This screenshot kind of hurts my head to look at, but it's the best screenshot I can get from when I first set up the palette. So I'm just going to quickly touch on the couple from the original February that I decluttered, and then we'll talk about how it evolved a little bit. Glaminatrix Cupcake. I did not see this happening, but I just realized this shade is so incredibly light that it kind of functions in the same way Ethereal does. It kind of gives you like a non-offensive transition. Like it would kind of work for anything, but it's just like, is it even necessary at all if it's so incredibly light? And that was kind of the conclusion I came to it, that I use it because I have it, but it's not really adding anything to a look that I can't get from other things. So Decluttering Glaminatrix Cupcake. I also have this red. This is Luxie Berry Blitz, and I compared it to Meteorite, which is the red that one of the two reds from my January palette, and Meteorite's just a better color than this one. So Decluttering Luxie Berry Blitz. I also have this ColourPop light pink, and I just kind of realized it doesn't really do anything for me. It's very sequiny, which is not my favorite formula. It was very kind of light and powdery, and I have other pinks in my collection that I know I like better. And then this one from Luxie, it's called Devious. It's covered with a pink shadow that we're going to talk about in a second, but it just didn't give me the shine that I wanted, and I wasn't crazy about it. I actually will swatch these four, because I did that for the January ones. We have Cupcake, Berry Blitz, the ColourPop pink, and Luxie Devious with some pink shadow mixed into it. Okay, so after I pulled those shadows out of the palette, I thought maybe I'd pop in some others that might be like easy declutters or ones I wanted to try out. So that's where this super messy ColourPop Star Child comes into place. Every time I tapped it with the brush, it would just like crumble more. And it's a pretty color, and I feel like the formula on this is more comparable to the indie shadows that I like. It definitely has more shine, but it's not even a pressed shadow at this point. So it's completely in crumbles. Here's a little swatch. It's beautiful. I really like the tone of it, and I like the shine of it, but just the format of it is awful. It's been a liability for a while. And then one other that I added was High Roller from Luxie, which is this deep purple. And I tried this out and just, again, doesn't have the shimmer that I want. That's it there. It's pretty, but it just doesn't do much for me. I was comparing this to the ones in the Menagerie Flight Club palette, because I'm just realizing I love that palette. And there's some like shimmery, deep purples in there that are just so beautiful, and I can remove them from there if I want them to function as single shadows, and I would rather do that a million times than use this one. And then this is the palette that I ended up with, so let's go over some of these. These two Menagerie ones, the two on the top, were there from the beginning. I think it was Junko and Moonflower, and I learned that one of them's a little bit more pinky in its base, one of them's a little bit more yellow. When I said base, I meant reflect. One's more pinky reflect and one's more yellow reflect, and I really like them, and I was using the pinky one for more warm tone looks and the yellow one for more cool tone looks, and they were both really pretty and I was enjoying using them. I also had several purples in here and I was really enjoying them. Fuchsia AF from Luxie, it's one of the shadows that I bought in January, really loving it. And that Adept one too, really love it. I also had Hot Rod from January's Luxie video in here, and that was like probably my MVP of all of these shadows. I was just really enjoying plopping it over to give looks extra shine, or using it for more neutral looks also. So the couple in here that are added, I put in some that I thought like I wanted to try out more, maybe they'd be easy declutters. One of these was the yellow up top called Lick It, Slam It, Suck It from Luxie. I hate the name of it. I don't know why they had to name it that. And I put it in there thinking I might be able to easily declutter it. It's definitely more of like a smooth formula, and my favorite Luxie shadows are the shinier, sparkly formula, but it just worked really nice as an inner corner shade, and I was enjoying it. It's kind of the same story for Luxie Solstice, other than me not hating the name of Solstice. It's just a smoother shadow, but I used it in my inner corner, and I liked it, and I also did use it all over my eye for a look, and I liked that too. One that I'm still like kind of trying to wrap my head around is Pink Linen from Luxie. It's one of the manufactured shades that came out in their January launch, and I thought that one was going to be like an easy declutter, but then I also did a look where I just like put that over my eye and it was like a super simple wash, and I liked it. So I'm not sure. I think I have others in my collection that I will be comparing that to, and you know, maybe I can just kind of be happy with one shadow like that being victorious, but I felt like there was something about that like, if it was one of my super in-your-face sparkly shadows, it wouldn't have the same soft, demure, pretty look as that kind of shade. I don't know. It also brings me back to the fact that I'm keeping palettes like my weekend festival where they're all kind of shades like that, and maybe it's represented in a palette already, so I'm not sure, but that one's staying for now. So the next things in February were the liquid eyeshadow liner category. The first one was a glitter. It's the Cancer glitter from Lime Crime that I just know I'm never going to wear a lot, but I did wear it for one look, and it's a showstopper, and it's definitely something that I want to keep in my collection, and when I have occasions to wear it, it's gonna be awesome. I really like the color of it. Really nice glitter. The next one is this Tarte Life's a Beach liquid shadow, and at first I used it all over my lid and it was very like hard and crackly, and I thought I was going to declutter it, but then I later used it as like a liner to like trace outside of a look, and I really liked that. So I think I am going to hold on to it for now and just think of it as a liner, because that is really pretty. It's really pretty. And then I have this Jelly Mutt shadow from ColourPop. It's the shade Barrel, and I love this one. It's just like a really pretty duochrome. I need to remember to use this more because these Jelly Mutt shadows definitely dry out, and I've wasted some before, and I don't want that to be the case with this because that's just so pretty. And lastly, we have the 3 palettes that I used in February. The first one is this Nabla Ruby Lights glitter palette, and I was excited to draw it because my thought going into this year, I think I said this during my palette collection also, that I have this and I have the Miami Lights glitter palette, and my thought was like maybe I would just kind of choose one because I didn't really use either of them, and having this be one of my palettes for this month, I'm really happy with this. I think it's beautiful. I love the colors, and there was a couple looks that I stuck this glitter, like once I finished the look I kind of stuck a glitter on the outer edge of the eyeshadow look, and I just thought it added this extra pop. It added this extra drama, and I was really into it, and I imagine I'm going to use this one more once I start using my whole collection freely again, and I'm also going to enjoy the Miami Lights one. Then we have this Tarte Unleashed palette. I do really like the mattes in this. I think this orange and this light pink transition tones are really nice. The shimmers, I think, leave a lot to be desired. The only one that I was actually kind of impressed with was this reddish one in the center. I had, we're going to talk about my ColourPop Cherry Crush palette next. I had used one of those shimmers at one point, and it was just giving me no shine, and this, when I popped it on top, gave me the shine that I wanted. But for the other ones, I think maybe I had a good experience with this gold. I know for sure this champagne I thought was going to be like my lid shade once for like a little bit of a toned down look, and it was just so toned down that I ended up topping it off with more shadows. So yeah, I still think it's nice. I think it's nice in conjunction with other shadows, but not that much of a standalone palette for me just because the shimmers aren't doing what I need. Finally, we have the Cherry Crush palette. This is one also that I thought I might end up decluttering or depotting a lot of, and the conclusion that I've come to with this is the mattes are so good. I feel like these mattes might be the best reds that I have in my collection in any format, but the shimmers, they don't do a single thing for me. I'm gonna swatch this out. Let me swatch the shimmers for you first. Oh, I meant I was swatching the mattes. Just kidding, these are the shimmers. They do nothing. They do nothing. And I don't have that many red shimmers in my collection. I'm actually going to be filming about all of my red shadows soon, but the one that I saw that was closest, I actually might have that stored with my pinks right now. I do. It's the shade Ruby Stars from Terra Moons. I'm not even sure if they still have this, but I just want to compare quality. So these are the 4 ColourPop shimmers, and then this is a Terra Moons one. I just feel like this will do what I need, you know? This will do what these are trying to do and failing. One other comparison. This one I know isn't available anymore, but it's the Super Shock from ColourPop in the shade Blitzen. It was a Kathleen Lights collab a couple years ago. And that's that there. So I feel like overall, these two give me the vibe. And let me show you the mattes now that I've hyped them up. It was also kind of nice to like learn what they are, because looking at this at first, I'm like, all right, it's just a lot of red. But now I know that this one's more of like a hot orange, which I really like. This one's a little bit more, it's called Cherry Stem. I feel like it's like a cherry cola kind of shadow. This one's like a hot pink. This one's like a true red, and this one's like a little bit of like a purplish burgundy. So these are the ones on the top row. This one's a little bit more subtle compared to all the other ones, but I did use it to kind of like deepen up a look that I didn't want to be so distinctly red, and it works well for that. Aren't those so nice? I really like them. It's hard to find red shadows in a vegan formula, and when you do, they're not always so awesome, but like this one, and this one especially, they're so good. So what I've decided is I'm going to take my handy little magnetic tool, and I'm going to depot and declutter those 4 subpar shimmers. I really like the packaging, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to keep these in here for now. I might stick some other of these small size favorites in there. It might be cute with some of my blues and like a champagne and a silver. I don't know, but it'll be nice to not keep pans in my collection that I've already decided against, because chances are if I don't do this, I'm going to go in it again at some point and be like, this can't be so bad. And it's like, I don't need to spend my whole life learning about my shadows. Like I learned, and now I can declutter those. So all in all, I think these first 2 months of randomly selecting my eyeshadows have been pretty successful. I've learned more about my makeup, and that's the goal. And right now I'm working on going through all of my shadows by color. I filmed myself organizing them. I'm not sure which one's going up first. This might go up first, actually. So stay tuned. That's coming. That's exciting. But after I get through all of those and I narrow down my collection a little bit that way, I'm going to go back to randomly selecting my palettes. So a lot of fun is on the horizon. I hope you'll stick around if you enjoy this kind of thing. Give me a like, subscribe, it really means a lot to me, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.